We've all heard the saying, money changes people, but what does that really mean? Is it that money makes people evil, selfish, cold? Or is it that money simply reveals what was always there? What if the truth is somewhere in between? Let's start here. One of the most misunderstood quotes of all time, often thrown around like gospel, is the idea that money is the root of all evil. But in reality, that's not what was originally said.
The actual phrase from the book of First Timothy says, "The love of money is the root of all evil." Not money itself, the attachment to it, the obsession. And that single word, love, changes everything. Psychologists have spent years studying how wealth affects the way we think, feel, and behave. Turns out, money doesn't just live in your wallet, it lives in your nervous system, in your decision-making, in your relationships, and maybe even in your empathy. One fascinating study published in Psychological Science found that people with less wealth were more accurate at reading the emotions of others. Their theory? When you don't have much, you're forced to rely more on others to survive. You learn to listen, to read the room, to detect the emotional temperature of a conversation fast. Wealthier individuals, on the other hand, often live in environments that reward independence, control, and self-interest. Empathy becomes optional, not essential, but it gets even more interesting. At UC Berkeley, researchers set up a simple Monopoly game. 2 players, same board, but one had a rigged advantage, more money, more dice rolls, more power. What happened? At first, the advantage player felt awkward, but as the game progressed, they leaned into the power. They played louder, more aggressive, more confident. They started taunting the other player. And here's the kicker. When asked later why they won, they credited their own strategies, their skill, their focus. They completely forgot the game was rigged. That's the dangerous part of money. Not what it buys, but how it can rewrite the story we tell ourselves. Suddenly, privilege looks like merit. Luck looks like deserved success. Now imagine this mindset, not in a board game, but in real life. Behind the wheel of a luxury car, in a job interview, at the head of a boardroom, in politics. Another Berkeley study found that drivers of expensive cars were significantly less likely to stop for pedestrians at crosswalks, and more likely to cut off other drivers. Even just thinking about money can shift your moral compass. In one Harvard experiment, participants were exposed to subtle money-related words before a test. The group primed with money, more likely to lie, more likely to cheat, more likely to prioritize their own gain. But here's the thing. It's not that wealth always corrupts. It's that wealth gives us the power to ignore the consequences of our actions. And the more power we gain, the easier it becomes to dehumanize the people affected by our choices. Because when you live high enough above the ground, the people down below start to look like ants. But maybe the scariest part, we're not just chasing money, we're becoming addicted to the pursuit of it. Dr. Tien Dayton describes this as a process addiction, like gambling or compulsive sex. It's not about the substance, but the feeling, the rush, the spike in dopamine that comes from checking your bank app or landing a deal or watching your investments tick upward. That chase, not money itself, is what can leave us empty yet hungry, full of things, but starving for meaning. And that's where the real danger lies. Not in the bills or the bank balance, but in the stories we build around them. The idea that once I hit this number, I'll finally feel secure. That more means better. That comfort equals happiness. But comfort doesn't teach you compassion, and wealth without wisdom is a dangerous thing. So no, money isn't evil, but it is powerful. And anything powerful enough to shape your identity deserves to be handled with care. Because in the end, how you earn, spend, and think about money says less about your bank account and more about your soul.